Temptation. Chapter 5. Fault Lines. Where the line blurs, recognition. He saw her. The terms of want, choice. She chose him. Persona non grata, curation. He curated the version of her he could tolerate. Terms and conditions, power. And the quiet panic that follows when power stops feeling safe. Fault lines is where the pressure finally shows where the cracks have always been. International Flight 1476 from Baltimore to Incheon touched down a little before 6 p.m. Before the jet bridge connected to the plane, Aubree had already unfastened her seatbelt and was searching for her carry-on. "You'd think they'd figure out how to make the process faster," she muttered, slipping into her blazer. Behind her, Julian lounged like he hadn't just spent 13 hours in first class. "You've been impatient since Chicago," he said, adjusting his sunglasses. "Gives us all a chance to get our bearings before you charge out into Korea's bustling metropolis." She shot him a glance over her shoulder. "I'm not here to fall in love with Seoul. I'm here to see if Engine's golden CEO and this app are worth our time." From across the aisle, Mrs. Steele gave a small, amused sigh. "Let's wait until we see the demo before we start swinging judgment around." Donna James stood, brushing a wrinkle from her blouse, and turned back with half a smile. "I'd like to at least check into the hotel before we evaluate the locals." Julian stretched. This is why I love Donna. Always the voice of calm in a room full of fire signs. "Don't flatter me," Donna replied. "I'm only here to make sure everything goes well." The group left the airport. As the sleek black taxi van pulled away from the curb, Seoul began to glow in the fading light. Glass buildings, winding streets, storefronts just beginning to light up. The city pulsed with possibility. None of them noticed the billboard near the exit, a young couple smiling down at traffic beneath the bold white tagline, "Love Simplified." It was the beta campaign for Engine's dating app, Alexis's app. Unbeknownst to Alexis, her world was about to shift. What was supposed to be a morning presentation had shifted to late afternoon. Mrs. Steele had come down with a mild illness and requested time to recover. Seung Dae-Jun's team accommodated the change without hesitation, moving the presentation closer to 5 p.m. It was a minor inconvenience for Alexis. She'd planned to meet Courtney and her boyfriend at a local art exhibit that evening. Still, the delay gave her team extra time to rehearse and perfect their delivery. Meanwhile, Aubree, Julian, Mrs. Steele, and Donna arrived at Engine headquarters by 3 p.m. to meet with executive staff. They apologized for the schedule shift and thanked everyone graciously for accommodating the last-minute changes. As uncomfortable Mrs. Steele's brief bought with gastritis the night before. The delay was equally, if not more uncomfortable for Aubree, as her autonomic nervous system was functioning at full capacity times 10, thus increasing Aubree's anxiety to heights she'd yet to experience. When she learned that they would delay the meeting until later in the day, Aubree's immediate reaction was anger. For a moment she'd taken it personally that Mrs. Steele needed to reschedule, that somehow the older woman was trying to sabotage Aubree's surprise attack against Alexis. "Old bitch, sick, how convenient!" Aubree's internal monologue was amped. She traversed her hotel suite. She didn't want to eat lunch and was barely able to sip the cooled coffee that sat for 45 minutes before she gave it any real attention. Aside from the occasional turn of the mug, Aubree watched the rings of cold, dark brown liquid crash against the walls of its ceramic confines. The closer it got to time for the meeting, Aubree mused about Alexis's reaction to seeing them walk through the doors of Engine. She wanted to show Alexis what she'd missed, particularly Julian. Early in their relationship, Aubree hadn't even liked him that much, but her mission had always been clear: to take anything Alexis ever wanted. Growing up, Aubree's mother constantly compared her to Alexis. Alexis was smarter, prettier, she had a better singing voice. Their church's congregation always praised Alexis. Always. It didn't matter if it were solos or with the choir. Her voice rang out, instantly identifiable. Aubree's mother loathed Alexis. She'd smile in the sixth grader's face. It was the backhanded compliments and the passive-aggressive commentary. "I am so proud of Aubree. She did the assignment on her own." A terse smile to anyone within earshot. "It's a shame that teachers don't vet student projects more. I mean, if every parent did their child's assignment..." Aubree's mother would shrug her shoulders and let the statement hang in the air. It didn't matter the seeds of doubt the middle-aged woman tried to spread. The only soil that any of it took root was in Aubree's mind. Alexis's capabilities had shown through on their own. The evidence was clear in every school project, every parent-teacher comment, every silent comparison. Even when the three girls, Aubree, Alexis, and Donna, were close, it had always been Alexis who shone the brightest. But everything changed in the summer. Donna moved away. That was the summer Aubree stopped being Alexis's friend and became her frenenemy. By 4:15 p.m., the Langley group was escorted into the 17th floor conference room. Alexis, Dae-Jun, and Jia were already in position, connected, composed, ready. The room had been designed to reflect Sung Group's style, modern, open, sharp. Aubree entered first, head high, followed by Julian, Mrs. Steele, and Donna. Alexis looked up, and for a moment she didn't move. Her eyes locked on Aubree, and then Julian. Shock flooded her body. Alexis's first thought. "I know these people." Her brow furrowed slightly. Her brain glitched. Alexis's mind went blank. Her best friend and boyfriend are standing before her very eyes. "I know you." Alexis' inner voice raised slightly. "I know you." That same voice repeated in her ears. This time is more like a warning than acknowledgement. It was the snap back to the present she needed. "Ms. Gray," Alexis said. Her voice carried a quiet shock beneath its polished professionalism. Her right hand betrayed her, nervously tugging at the hem of her cardigan. Aubree smiled, syrupy and cold. "Lexi, oh my goodness. Long time no see." Julian took a step forward. "Lexi," he said instinctively. Soft, familiar, too familiar. Aubree snapped her head toward him with a glare sharp enough to stop time. Alexis bowed slightly. "Good to see you here today. Wow." The tension was so thick it clung to the air. Dae-Jun noticed. Everyone did. Dae-Jun took command of the room, breaking the uncomfortable silence. "Please, let's all be seated." Mrs. Steele and Donna greeted the team politely but with limited engagement. As everyone settled, Alexis pressed a key on her laptop, waking the monitor. The presentation began. The engine team transitioned smoothly from slide to slide. Alexis opened with the product's core ethos: simplicity, safety, organic matching. Dae-Jun walked through technical logistics. Jia ran the live demo. They anticipated questions, offered data, and fielded every inquiry with practiced precision. The Langley group observed carefully. Mrs. Steele nodded. Donna jotted quiet notes. Julian's attention drifted between the screen and Alexis. Aubree said little, but her presence was pointed, especially when she grilled Alexis on core user segmentation, repeating the same question multiple ways. Dae-Jun watched it all unfold. Something wasn't right. If he were a betting man, and sometimes he was, sensed that the two women knew each other, and that wasn't a good thing. Still, the app stood strong. The pitch was a success. When the project team concluded, Alexis shared a QR code that would allow the Langley group to submit confidential feedback. Dae-Jun extended an invitation for dinner as a courtesy. Everyone accepted, except Alexis, Dae-Jun, and Jia, who attempted to excuse themselves. Dae-Jun stopped the trio in the hallway. "Ms. Lane," he said. "A word?" Dae-Jun and Jia glanced at Alexis. She nodded. "We'll wait downstairs," Jia said gently, then stepped into the elevator with Dae-Jun. Dae-Jun stood beside Alexis in the quiet corridor, watching as Aubree disappeared around the corner toward the restroom. "Let me ask you," he said quietly. Is there something I should know about Ms. Gray? Alexis didn't respond, and neither of them moved. Aubree emerged from the restroom hallway just in time to catch the elevator doors sliding shut, with Dae-Jun and Gia inside. But Alexis wasn't with them. Her heels clicked softly against the tile as she slowly walked back to the main conference room, feigning nonchalance as she glanced at her phone. She didn't need to guess where Alexis was. She could see it. Through the narrow pane of glass near the corridor junction, just before the corner turned sharply into the private consultation suite, she caught a glimpse. Director Seong and Alexis. Alone. He was standing close, not touching, but too close for a boss who'd just watched a successful pitch. Alexis wasn't smiling, but she wasn't retreating either. Her posture was tight, her eyes searching his face, as if she couldn't quite anticipate what he would say next. Why is he looking at her like that? Aubree stepped just out of view, pressed against the wall, breath caught high in her chest. She tilted her head, listening, barely able to catch the murmurs of their voices, too low to make out. But the silence between their exchanges said more than the words could. Jealousy twisted in her throat like smoke. She hadn't expected Alexis to stand tall today. She'd imagined Alexis smaller, worn down, maybe insecure, at the very least, forgettable. But that wasn't who had stood in front of the Langley team. Alexis had been sharp, steady. She didn't buckle when Aubree walked in, didn't stammer or shrink when Julian said her name. She even fielded those deliberately layered questions with more grace than Aubree had anticipated. And now this? Aubree leaned her head against the wall and exhaled slowly, pressing her lips together until the sting behind her eyes disappeared. She wasn't sure what infuriated her more, that Alexis had grown stronger, or that Seung Dae-Jun, handsome, powerful, elegant, was clearly interested. That wasn't supposed to happen. People like Dae-Jun didn't look twice at people like Alexis, not when Aubree was in the room. Aubree peeked through the glass again. Dae-Jun's expression had softened, barely. He was speaking with restraint, but his body language gave him away. There was a tension in his shoulders, a flicker of something guarded behind his gaze. Alexis looked like she had been holding her breath. Aubree gritted her teeth. What was it about Alexis? Why did men always gravitate toward her, even the ones she didn't ask for? First Cole, then Julian. And now, apparently, Korea's most elusive bachelor. No, this can't happen. If Alexis became the face of this project, if she gained him, it would be more than a professional win. It would be personal redemption. And that was something Aubree couldn't allow. She pulled out her phone, pretending to check a text, and stepped away from the glass wall just as Alexis turned her head. No need to be seen. Not yet. But her mind was already racing. Director Seung watched her too closely. And Alexis didn't look like she hated it. That meant one thing. If Aubree wanted control back, she'd have to take it. The lighting in the private room was soft and warm, curated for comfort and diplomacy, the kind of dinner meant to say we're all friends here, even when the air said otherwise. A long mahogany table stretched down the room, set with delicate white plates and crystal wine glasses. Subtle jazz played low through hidden speakers. Outside the window, the Seoul skyline shimmered like a city watching from a distance. Dae-Jun sat at the head of the table. To his right, Aubree. To his left, Mrs. Steele. Donna and Julian flanked further down. Alexis sat directly across from Aubree, flanked by Dae-Jun and Ga, both quietly attentive. The engine trio had entered with grace, polished, professional, unfazed. But that didn't mean Alexis didn't feel the weight of Aubree's eyes the moment she sat down. Dae-Jun made polite introductions. Courses were served. Small talk floated in the air like smoke, safe, superficial. Then Aubree struck. "So, Dae-Jun," she said smoothly, resting her chin on her hand. Aubree had been bold. She dropped honorifics and formalities as she addressed Dae-Jun, and this wasn't lost on him either. I have to ask, how long have you allowed Alexis to lead your in-house development? Dae-Jun's weaponized indifference was forged in a myriad of hellscape boardrooms and acquisitions, was unfazed by Aubree's presumptuousness, turned his gaze to her, then to Alexis. She earned the role through consistent performance. I don't assign titles lightly. Aubree's smile curled at the edges. Of course. She's always been focused. Even when we were kids, she liked to be the one with the answers. Alexis said nothing, her fingers tightening slightly around her fork. Julian glanced at Aubree but said nothing. Dae-Jun leaned back. It's a quality I value. This project wouldn't have reached beta without her leadership. Leadership? Aubree echoed with mock curiosity. That's new. I thought Alexis always preferred being the support beam rather than the spotlight. I'm not sure you know her anymore, Dae-Jun replied evenly. A subtle silence fell over the table. Gia cleared her throat. We prefer results to spotlights. Aubree didn't look away from Alexis. I suppose people change. I have, Alexis said quietly, setting her wine glass down. I just stopped apologizing for growing. Donna lifted her glass slightly at that. A quiet gesture. Dae-Jun's fingers tapped once against the table, subtle but measured. The next course arrived. Grilled sea bass over fermented black garlic puree. The server refilled glasses. Someone chuckled at something Mrs. Steele said, but the pulse of the room had shifted. Aubree pressed on. I imagine it's been nice, she said, tilting her gaze to Dae-Jun now. Having someone like Alexis around. I mean, she's familiar, soft-spoken, easy to work with, I'm sure. Dae-Jun set his utensils down slowly. I don't choose talent based on personality. I choose based on results. Aubree leaned in. But that doesn't mean personality isn't appreciated. Something about her tone, sweetened and laced with implication, sent a flicker through the room. Alexis didn't flinch. She reached for her water and took a sip. Dae-Jun treats everyone fairly, she said with a soft edge. He doesn't need to be reminded who's familiar. He values performance. There it was. The challenge, controlled, elegant. Aubree's smile cracked slightly. Julian, who had been silent most of the meal, finally spoke. She's not wrong. All eyes turned toward him. She's done the work, led the team. We've all seen it. He looked at Aubree last. Why minimize that? Aubree turned her face away, but the bite in her jawline betrayed her. Dae-Jun refilled his own glass. I suggest we enjoy the rest of the meal, he said. The numbers speak for themselves, as does the app. Alexis's gaze dropped to her plate, but her spine remained straight. Her heartbeat, however, was racing. Alexis picked up her phone and sent a quick text and laid the phone in her lap. Nanoseconds later, the space around her lap illuminated with a notification. Lighting had replaced the infamous ping. Again, Alexis replied. It was to Min-Jun. I'm done here. Whenever you're ready. Absent-mindedly, Alexis placed her phone face up on the table nearest Dae-Jun. He clocked Alexis's interaction with her lavender-colored cell, and his curiosity began to set in. Across the table, Aubree smiled again, lifting her glass in a cool, polished toast. To clarity. Alexis met her eyes and raised her own glass. To peace. They drank, but nothing was settled. The room buzzed with muted conversation and polished laughter, but Alexis felt the static humming beneath it all. Every word from Aubree carried just enough venom to sting, delivered in sweet tones, wrapped in civility. She wasn't going to sit through dessert. The inbound text illuminated the space between Dae-Jun and Alexis. Immediately, Dae-Jun's gaze fell on the screen between the two, as did Aubree's. Min-Jun. I'm here. I'll come get you. Alexis snapped up her phone quicker than Dae-Jun had time to read anything other than Min-Jun's name and the words, I'm here. Dae-Jun swore he felt the Earth's gravitational pull drag his centeredness out of alignment. No need. I'm on my way. She typed with fingers of experience. Alexis wiped her mouth with her napkin, folded it neatly, and set it beside her plate. "If you'll all excuse me," she said, rising with quiet poise. "I have a prior engagement I can't reschedule." The room stilled slightly. Even the server paused mid-step. "You're leaving?" Aubree asked, blinking. "But dinner's not finished." "I know," Alexis replied, offering a tight smile. "I'd mentioned it earlier to Dae-Jun and Jia. It's been on my calendar for weeks." Dae-Jun looked up at her. "You sure it can't wait?" "I'm afraid not," she said gently. "It's something personal, time-sensitive." Jia stood slightly. "I'll walk you out." Alexis held up a hand. "I've got it, thank you." Alexis had been holding her phone near her chest when the screen lit up again. "I'm in the lobby." The smiley face emoji diffused Alexis's tension. A small smile crept across her face. She turned to Mrs. Steele and Donna first, bowing politely. "It was a pleasure meeting you both. Thank you again for your time today." Mrs. Steele and Donna smiled. But for Donna, there was something searing at her edges as well. The woman before her. Same name as her childhood best friend. Same face, or so she thought. But how could that be? Donna thought she was mistaken for sure. Still, she hadn't seen Alexis since the 6th grade. Staring at this stranger, this moment was the closest Donna would ever get to having any idea of what 12-year-old Alexis might look like today, had she lived. Donna fought with her emotions through the meeting, through dinner. She tried not to drown her angst in Grey Goose martinis. She only drank 2. She tried not to stare, not to question this woman. The woman with her friend's name, exact name. What are the odds? It's like lightning in a bottle. "We were very impressed, Ms. Lane," Donna added warmly. "Safe travels tonight." Alexis noticed sadness in the woman's eyes and gave her a warm smile. Last in line was Julian. Alexis's eyes flicked to him. He looked like he might say something, but didn't. Then finally, she looked at Aubree. "Aubree," she said evenly. "Lexi," Aubree replied, her voice sing-song and sharp. Alexis's gaze didn't linger. Alexis took that very moment between her and Aubree to type into her phone. "I'm on my way." Fingers moving rapidly, she turned to Dae-Jun last. "Thank you for the opportunity, sir." The formality had been intentional. He bowed slightly. "Of course." As Alexis made her way to the door, her heels echoing in the quiet space, the mood in the private dining room shifted again, tightened somehow. Aubree watched her go, her jaw stiff. This wasn't the Alexis she expected. She was supposed to unravel, crumble, beg for space in a room she no longer belonged to. Instead, Alexis walked out first, head high, unafraid. Aubree gripped the stem of her wine glass until her knuckles whitened. Meanwhile, Dae-Jun didn't look away from the door. Not for a long time. Later, that night. The suite door shut behind the couple with a soft click, but the silence inside felt jagged. Julian slipped off his jacket and tossed it onto the back of a chair, already loosening his collar. "You've been quiet since dinner." Aubree didn't answer right away. She crossed to the minibar, poured herself a glass of sparkling water with too much force, and took a sip like it might drown whatever was burning in her throat. Then she turned. "You embarrassed me," Julian blinked. "Excuse me?" "At dinner." Her voice was still low, controlled, but laced with ice. "You made a point to defend Alexis, publicly." "She didn't need defending," he said. "She held her own. I just didn't want to let you keep digging at her." Aubree laughed under her breath. "So you were protecting me now?" Julian sighed. "Aubree." "No," she snapped, stepping toward him. "Don't Aubree me. You stood up for her, in front of everyone, after everything." Julian crossed his arms. "Because you wouldn't stop. You were baiting her. You acted like this was college again." Her eyes flashed. "You think I want to be like this?" He paused. and that silence was louder than anything else. Aubree looked away, her throat tight. "I thought you were on my side." "I am on your side," he said, "but I'm not here to hurt Alexis just to soothe your pride." She flinched. It was subtle, but it landed. "You still have feelings for her," she said. You were staring at her. "No, I wasn't." "Don't lie to me, Julian." "No, I'm not lying, Bree. I'm just not pretending she's nothing when she clearly is holding her own. She's not the girl you've made her out to be." Aubree's hands curled around her glass. "She walks in, and suddenly you forget all of it. How she left. How she made us feel like afterthoughts." Julian didn't respond. Aubree stepped closer, her voice dropping dangerously close to Scourge. "You looked at her tonight." His jaw tightened. "And you were watching." "Of course I was watching," she snapped, "because she was never supposed to come out of this better than me. I had to work twice as hard to keep up with her. Every year, every internship, every time I walked into a room and saw her already there, smiling like it was hers. And now?" Aubree shook her head, voice breaking just slightly. "Now she has him too." Julian blinked. "Director Sung?" "She has his attention, Julian. Don't pretend you didn't see it." He exhaled slowly. "Maybe she does, but that's not the issue here, is it?" Aubree turned away. "I just wanted her to flinch," she said quietly. "Just once. I wanted her to feel small." Julian said nothing. Behind her, the city lights blinked through the tall window, silent and distant. She didn't cry. She never cried. But something in her expression cracked, just enough to reveal the wound underneath all the polish. For the first time in years, he didn't close the distance. Boutique Art Hotel, Rooftop Exhibit, 8:42 p.m. The rooftop gallery wasn't crowded, just tastefully lit, white-walled, warm-toned, dotted with sculptures and large-format photographs hung against raw concrete. Strings of exposed bulbs crisscrossed the ceiling above like a gentle constellation. Jazz drifted from a corner speaker. People milled about with flutes of Prosecco and murmured in low tones. Alexis walked slowly past a large black-and-white photograph of a woman standing in the rain, her face half turned to the camera. It was haunting. Still. She could have stared at it for hours, but the sound of her name pulled her back. "Alexis!" She turned. Courtney's boyfriend, Evan, was waving from near the terrace bar, a little too enthusiastically. He was harmless, endearing, trying a bit too hard in the way that made her like him more. She smiled, walking toward him. "Hey." "You made it," he said, offering her a glass. "I got you the peach Prosecco you like. They actually had it." Alexis took it with a nod. "Thanks. She's running a little late," he added, meaning Courtney. "Still stuck with that consulting team. They triple booked her this week." "Of course," Alexis said. "No worries." They stood in a comfortable pocket of silence. She sipped her drink and pretended she wasn't mentally replaying the way Aubree had said her name, or how Dae-Jun had watched her with that unreadable expression, or the fact that Julian had looked like he wanted to say something and didn't. Evan leaned in, lowering his voice. "So, how'd it go?" She blinked. "The presentation?" "Yeah, you were nervous." "I wasn't nervous," she said automatically. He smiled. "Okay." Alexis sighed. "It went fine. Better than fine. The product held up, the team was solid." He studied her. "But?" She looked away. "I just didn't expect who would be in the room." "Old boss?" "Worse," she said softly. "Old friend." Evan nodded slowly. "That kind of old?" She gave a dry laugh. "Exactly that kind." They stood beside a sculpture of two open hands, cast in dark iron. One palm was cracked, the other held light. She stared at it. "She tried to rattle me," Alexis admitted. "And for a second I think she almost did. But you didn't flinch." "No," Alexis said. I didn't. Then that's your win, Evan said. She looked up at him, grateful for the simplicity in his voice, for the absence of games, for the quiet. Her phone buzzed in her bag. She ignored it. Right now, she didn't want another message. Not from Dae-Jun, not from Julian, not even from Courtney. She wanted to stay in this moment, drink in hand, art in front of her, and no one asking her for anything, just for one more hour. Boutique Art Hotel, rooftop exhibit, 9:37 p.m. The elevator doors slid open with a soft chime, and Courtney stepped out in a tailored black coat and ankle boots, her hair swept into a high knot. She scanned the room quickly. She spotted them near the sculpture wall, Alexis leaning against the railing with a half-empty flute of Prosecco, Evan beside her talking gently with an older couple about the artist's use of shadow. Courtney made a beeline. "There's my favorite person," she said, pulling Alexis into a hug. Alexis exhaled as their shoulders touched. "You're late." "Blame 3 middle-aged consultants arguing about drone logistics," Courtney said, rolling her eyes. "But I'm here now, and very overdressed, apparently." "You're perfect," Alexis said, voice thin but sincere. Evan joined them with a smile. "Hey, Court." Courtney gave him a quick kiss on the cheek. "Hi, babe." She turned back to Alexis, stepping in a little closer. "You okay?" Alexis hesitated, then nodded. "Fine." Courtney's eyes narrowed. Liar. Alexis looked away. Courtney leaned in slightly. "Talk to me." Alexis stared out over the terrace. Her voice dropped. "Aubree was there." Courtney stilled. "At the presentation," Alexis clarified. "She's with the U.S. delegation. She's one of the clients." Courtney blinked. "Aubree Morgan is Langley Ventures?" Alexis nodded. Courtney let out a breath. "Holy, Lex." "Yeah." "And she brought Julian?" Alexis didn't answer. "Oh my God," Courtney whispered. "What the hell did they do? Just decide to crawl out of your emotional attic all at once?" Alexis let out a soft laugh. "I handled it." Courtney studied her. "Did you?" "I didn't cry. I didn't freeze. I gave the presentation. I left early." "But..." Alexis stared at the sculpture in front of her, a single golden thread suspended between 2 curved rods. Tension made visible. A perfect metaphor. "I saw something," she said, "between Director Shang and Aubree." Courtney frowned. "Define something." "I don't know, just recognition, familiarity." Courtney looked confused. "You think they've met?" "No, I think they understand each other. People like them do." Alexis shrugged. "Strategic, cool, polished, dangerous." Courtney folded her arms. "Except you're all those things too." Alexis shook her head. "Not like them." "You're right," Courtney said. "You're better." Alexis didn't answer. Her phone buzzed in her purse. She ignored it again. Courtney placed a hand on her arm. "Listen to me. You made it through that room. You walked out before anyone could take that from you. That is power." Alexis nodded slowly, but her thoughts were still drifting to Dae-Jun. The way he looked at her as she left, the unspoken questions in his eyes, and the fact that no matter how much ground she covered today, she still couldn't stop feeling like someone was rewriting her story behind her back. Seung Group penthouse office. Late evening, 9:45 p.m. The city below glittered. Each pinprick of light reflected in the tall glass that wrapped around the top floor of the Seung Group tower. It was quiet, executive quiet, still, cold, controlled. Dae-Jun stood with his hands in his pockets, shoulders tight, jaw locked. He hadn't removed his tie yet. His drink sat untouched on the console table beside him, the ice long since melted the amber liquid into something near tasteless and forgotten. Dae-Jun dragged a hand through his hair. The last 8 hours refused to leave him alone. Whatever he was feeling had nowhere to escape. With a slow exhale, Dae-Jun crossed the room to the large cherry wood desk. He lifted the receiver of the office phone and dialed the first number that came to mind. The call connected on the fourth ring. "Hello," Alexis whispered onto the phone. Her voice was low, warm, rich in a way his ears hadn't prepared for. In the background he could hear music, laughter, muffled voices. She was still out. A slow inhale came through the receiver. "Hello. Can you hear me?" He heard the faint rustle of movement. Alexis fumbling with the phone, probably checking the caller ID. The number was private. He knew that. He also knew he had never shared it with her. There was no way she'd know it was him. The noise behind her continued, music, laughter, voices layered together. And then he heard it. Him. A voice all too familiar. "Is everything all right?" It was Min-Jun. More muffled conversation. Then the party noise softened as Alexis moved away from the crowd. The chaotic voices faded into a quiet susurration. "Hello?" Alexis sounded slightly breathless. She didn't drink. Not really. But if Dae-Jun were a betting man, and sometimes he was, he would wager she'd had one drink more than usual. Maybe two. "I can't help you if you won't say anything." A slow, dull ache began to build in his core. The cold, twisted feeling of anxiety began to root. "Alexis." His voice matched her cadence without meaning to. "Yes, this is she." Dae-Jun paused. He caught a glimpse of himself in Window's reflection. The man staring back at him was unfamiliar. The reflection looked like him. But the man in the glass had no courage at all. "Alexis." "Yes." "This is Director Seung." "Director," Alexis parroted. "Dae-Jun," he corrected her, recognizing that her boss was on the other end of the call that got Alexis's attention fully. "Sir, is everything okay?" He ignored the question. "You're still out?" "Yes." His heart hammered in his chest. The longer he spoke with her, the louder it became, until the sound seemed to fill his ears. "Do you want something, sir?" Dae-Jun's brow furrowed. Saying yes held 1,000 truths he had spent weeks denying. The pause stretched between them, heavy with something neither of them could quite name. He pressed the receiver tighter against his ear, straining to hear her breathing. Slow, rhythmic, and soft. All he could think about was that he wanted to be wherever she was. "Sir, Dae-Jun," he said quietly. "Call me by my first name, Alexis." His voice sounded more like a plea. "Dae-Jun." "Yes." "Do you want me?" "I mean to say," Alexis corrected. "Did you mean to call me?" Her words carried confusion more than longing. "Yes." She waited, expecting him to clarify. He didn't. "Are you home?" "No," he responded. "Do you need me?" "Dae-Jun." Another long pause. "Yes." It was all he trusted himself to say without sounding more desperate than he already felt. "Call me when you get home. It might be late." Alexis said softly, "Call me." The words came out sharper than he intended. Then the line went dead. Dae-Jun had already hung up. Late-night meetings, 1:15 a.m. The obsidian sky split open in a flash of electric blue-white lightning. For a brief moment, Seoul was illuminated beneath it. Streaks of light spread across the city like the crooked fingers of a witch's hand. Alexis didn't notice. The thunder that followed barely registered either. She only felt the low vibration of it, a rolling sound wave that slowly inked its way through the city, touching every building, every street, every living thing. The cool glass of the window pane pressed against her back. Her fingers were tangled in his hair. She had been whispering something, half words, half breath, nonsense phrases that dissolved the moment they left her lips. His face was buried against her chest. The slow drag of his inhale sent heat racing through her body. His tongue brushed against one sensitive nipple while his mouth closed over the other, devouring it with a hunger that made her grip tighten in his hair. One of his hands circled her waist. The other palmed her breast, his thumb stroking the hardened peak with an almost lazy rhythm that made her breath hitch. Her breaths grew ragged. Heat pooled low in her stomach, spreading outward like a slow burn. He was everywhere, his mouth, his hands, his tongue, all over her. Dae-Jun. His name slipped from Alexis's lips before she could stop it, breathless, unsteady. Alexis. He answered against her skin, the sound muffled between her breasts. Some small sliver of awareness surfaced in Alexis's mind through the haze. How did we get here? Late-night meetings. 12:56 a.m., 16 minutes earlier. Alexis stood outside of Dae-Jun's apartment door, her hand unconsciously toying with the delicate gold butterfly charm hanging from the wheat-linked gold chain around her neck. The chain's forged texture soothed her subconscious as her fingertips glid slowly across each link. 1,001 thoughts ran through her mind. At the party, Min-jun could tell that Alexis was spent from a long day at work. He offered to take her home, and she happily accepted. The pair left the gallery by 10:15. The idea of a warm shower and returning the director's call was more enticing than staying any longer. Before 11 p.m., Min-jun and Alexis stood beside the idling taxi outside of her apartment building. He'd given her a brief hug goodbye, along with his customary forehead kiss. Alexis waved to Min-jun one final time, typed in the building's access code, and disappeared beyond his view. Grateful for the support of her friend group, all Alexis wanted to do was shower. She left a trail of apparel that ended in the living room when she stepped out of her trousers at the front door and began unbuttoning her blouse when her phone vibrated. An incoming call from Min-jun. Alexis answered on the second ring. "Are you in the house?" "Yes." "Good. Will you call him?" "Not right away." "Good. Take care of yourself first." A small smile crept on the side of Alexis's face. "I will." She sounded almost childlike in her confession. "Let me know when you make it home." "I just got a call. My plans have changed. I'm on my way to meet a friend." "A friend?" A small giggle escaped from Alexis's throat. "You are too much, Min-jun." "I hope he thinks so too." A mischievous snicker rose from Min-jun's chest. They said goodnights. Alexis sat on the beige linen-upholstered bench at the foot of her bed, generously applying body oil to her damp skin, when her phone chimed. Incoming call from a number she recognized this time. She picked up the call on the fourth ring. "Hello? Hello?" Dae-jun sounded exhausted. "Are you home?" "Yes." "You didn't call me," Dae-jun said as he unfastened his tie, leaving it hanging loose around his neck. He sauntered back to the familiar placement against the living room window. His forearm served as a headrest between his forehead and the coolness of the window pane. "What are you doing now? Do you have company?" he questioned in rapid succession, with the last question stated sharply. "I just got out of the shower." "The shower?" "Yeah. I need to see you." Silence stretched across the line. "Now?" Alexis asked softly. Tonight, Alexis walked out of the room with her dignity intact. Aubree walked away with something much more dangerous, unfinished anger. And somewhere across the city, Dae-jun realized that the version of Alexis he thought he understood might not exist at all. So now I want to know what you think. Question 1. When Julian defended Alexis at dinner, was that respect, lingering feelings, or guilt? Question 2. Did Dae-jun really call Alexis because he missed her, or because he heard Min-jun's voice and suddenly couldn't stand the idea of someone else having her attention? Question 3. If you were Alexis, would you have stayed at that dinner and confronted Aubree, or done exactly what Alexis did and walk out first? Question 4. Be honest, is Aubree actually the villain of this story, or is she just the version of Alexis that grew up without love? If fault lines pulled you in, go ahead. Like, comment, share, and subscribe, because temptation doesn't stop here.